And welcome in, everybody. Good Friday to you all. You have joined us at SEC Football and Beyond. I am Chris Landry, joining my good friend and partner Neil McCready as we are heading into another weekend, getting deeper into, it's, Neil, we're, a week away, Monday from Memorial Day, is that right? And we're headed towards June, and
That's correct.
still a lot of stuff going on. A lot of colleges around the country, including a lot of our schools we talk about in the SEC, as well around the country, having big Junes lined up with kids coming in. We don't have the normal May, as you've not been able to go out and see kids. May was always a big evaluation month, but June's going to be big with a lot of different camps. People are having different types of camps, mini camp, shorter camps to bring kids in. So a lot to chew on there a little bit. We have kind of started, Neil, to begin to gradually, bit by bit, just little nibbles to get folks kind of ingrained towards the season. Just some of the best players returning that we think are really good in the SEC. We've got the transfer portal information. And then there's something that I want to get into that we'll talk about that's kind of affecting maybe into the high school level. How you doing today, my friend?
I'm good. It's been a busy week. It's graduation week. Caroline graduates today. Carson had wrapped up.
Congratulations, Caroline. Carson, congratulations.
Carson wrapped up his all of his club soccer stuff, his tryouts last night. So we'll start making some decisions there. And so it's been a busy week. Be a big night for us tonight, and then we'll be down to one.
Awesome. Hey, everybody. Gosh, hate to ask for anything, but if you can say a prayer out there, if you're of the mind to, we are having, I'm fine where I'm at, but we're having a hell of a time in Baton Rouge. We think it's going to end today, but the flooding has just been incredible. And it's just been, Neil and everyone out there, I got a soggy yard, no big deal. But I went get my first COVID shot on Tuesday. And so, it's not that far away. But, just the areas right outside, where I live, not even 5 minutes. There are places when I drove down, I saw water up to where you think of a window, kind of one of those big windows that you have in the house that's kind of go close to the floor, halfway up. And I'm like, almost wrecked, like, oh my God, because those areas that I never seen it that high. And, sure enough, you just the next day, and the water is going down pretty quick, draining it just doesn't have enough time. And then, it's just heartbreaking. The next day you go see nothing but mattresses and furnitures out in front. It's just, we had a massive flood here. Oh, I don't know, 5 years ago. And there are people that still not recovered from that. So, gosh, if you're of the mind to, I know everybody's dealing with a lot of stuff. And it was supposed to slow down yesterday. It did nothing but rain all day yesterday. And it's not raining hard, but it's raining now. And they say, tomorrow it's cleaning up. But it's going to be a real mess. But anyway.
So I can't remember this, and I should as a Louisiana boy, but I grew up in Louisiana, and obviously I'm not a teenager anymore. Is Baton Rouge below sea level? I remember living in Mobile when it really rained, the flooding. It was always on the cusp of it being really bad. Then it would move out. But you always knew, man, this place could flood quickly just because of its geographic location, the topography of it all.
It's not like New Orleans. For folks that are on the outside who don't know, New Orleans
it's a bowl.
Yeah, if you think of your sink in your bathroom and the little stopper at the bottom, that's New Orleans. And everything, that's, and then everything is just blocked to allow that. And that's what happened with Katrina. It wasn't the force of the hurricane is everyone knows by now, is the breaching of the levees.
Sure.
And you have the Mississippi River, you have Lake Pontchartrain, you have the Gulf of Mexico. And then when you have like storm weather where water just blows in. So it's not New Orleans. But what's really changed is that as they're building and growing, it's hard to explain to people that, like, I lived in Tennessee where everything's hilly. Everything's so darn flat.
Yeah.
And even up where you are, you're starting to get. So it's like when you build developments, like when they're building developments, and I'm thinking, okay, so they're building that up. Is that going to now start to drain my way? And it's not, but it's draining somewhere. So there is a famous road for people who know LSU or Baton Rouge, and Neil, you remember the road because it's historic. Highland Road.
Sure, of course.
Highland Road was named for high land.
Right.
They made it so it was a high land. What's funny now, if you go down Highland Road, on each side of Highland Road, and you can't expand Highland Road because it's kind of an historic, so it has to stay. And the parallel road is Burbank, which is the road off of which my extension that leads to my subdivision is on. But what is amazing, so Highland Road, the houses to the side, which are just some of the more beautiful houses, the houses are built up on the hill. So like based on, like, say, where it was in the 40s and 50s, Highland Road is now the low spot. I mean, it's like you can't build on Highland Road unless you build it and you go from Highland Road and you drive up. And so what happens is there are places like in North Baton Rouge that are just getting hammered. What we're not quite understanding is why, because it doesn't, and they're even doing stuff, and it's why. I know it's so darn fast, so quick.
Yeah.
It's like, is there drainage problems, or are there? It's like, so it's flooding people, but then 2 hours later it's dry. There's something wrong. It's a drainage problem, right? I mean, if it's a flood, that flood's going to stay there for a day or two or something because it hadn't stopped raining. But it's just like, I guess it's coming so hard. So they're trying to figure out what the heck's going on, why I guess the drainage systems are faltering. Now you have all the bayous, the Bayou Manchac and all that. They're over flooding and they can't take any more water. So I think, Neil, what it is as the city's grown,
yep,
it's like, well, what's high was, what used to be high is now medium, and what's medium is now low, and so it's like anything else, water seeks its level. So you keep thinking, like I'm blessed, but my understanding, this subdivision, when it was first built, was a real low-lying area. It had a ton of floods because I checked in it before I bought in 2003, and it's like, we get nothing. I mean, everything drains, even in my back, everything we got nothing. I mean, and I can go, I went to Walmart and Albertsons yesterday to get stuff, and it's just right outside, no problem. But I get, not even 5 minutes out, I mean, there are people stranded. There are a couple of people died because they didn't realize the water was so high. I mean, they're showing stuff on the news. A guy up to, I don't know why the hell he would do this, but he's sitting there, and I mean, for those of us that are watching on TV, the water is up chest high, and it's like, where the hell is he? It was his backyard. It looked like he was in, it's like, it's just, it seems a little bit, more than normal. So everybody's trying to figure that out. It's really, I mean, we just have enormous property damage in the area, and not the tremendous loss of life, but it's just, I don't know. It just seems like we're trying to figure out what the heck is going wrong.
Well, I think so much of it is what you just said is, post Katrina, so many people moved to Baton Rouge originally temporarily, and then it became permanent, and it just built up. I know this is hyperbolic, but as someone who's been to Baton Rouge a lot to cover games and whatnot, Baton Rouge feels like it's doubled in size in about a decade. And whenever that happens, well, all of those people live somewhere, and so those you can't help but wonder about just those developments that pop up and they happen so fast. Like where I am in Oxford right now, there's a two developments kind of behind us that every time I walk the dogs, I'm like, holy hell, that's another house. I mean, they're just throwing them up. And when that happens in mass like that, you can't help but wonder if they had to take some shortcuts on environmental studies, on flood studies, if they just a supply demand, right? There was a demand, and so you supplied it, and now here we are. What is it? Katrina was 2005. So here
2005, and we had a big boom after that.
Yeah,
I mean, a lot of people in New Orleans went everywhere. Sure. I mean, Houston, Atlanta. I mean, I remember going to the Super Bowl in Detroit, and guy that was one of our drivers said we had like 20 families from New Orleans that moved into my neighborhood. This guy was saying in Detroit area. Like, really? Good. Now maybe there's some ties to where they just said, "The heck with it. We're going as far north as we can." I don't know, but it's like everybody moved everywhere, and we had a lot of that. And I often thought we maybe overbuilt, but yet they got a new development coming. Not far from where I am, new housing, new subdivision. It's like, man, they're building, and there is 3 people on my street in the subdivision. The house is up for sale, and I mean they're not up for sale and it's a good thing, I guess. Not that I'm looking to sell, but they're like boom, 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 they're gone. I mean, they're like 3 houses for sale on my little street as I'm here, and they're going quickly. So I guess the market is good, but as you said. So the areas where these developments are, this used to be when we had rain, that was all flooded. Well, it ain't flooded now because they built it up so high. So that water's going somewhere. I don't know where it's going, but it's going. And I think it's going to maybe some of the bayous and in the little arteries that we have. And that's flooding out. And that's going into other areas because there's an area, I don't want to mention names, but like an area called Segan Lane that was kind of a not far area where I go to Lowe's and a couple places. It's like they tell me that was flooded really bad. So anyway, not to bore you with that. We appreciate Jeff saying his brother and Geismar. And Jeff, I appreciate you. I'm Jeff Parrott. I'm fine. But I'm worried about the other people, and I'm really worried about. I hope your brother's okay because New Orleans they're getting it too, and they're worse in a lot of areas, and so they're dealing with that. So anyway, not to throw that on everybody, but it's been something that's been on my mind. I can't keep away from. So
sure.
We got something that was on my radar. Neil, if it's okay, we'll get into it because Sam High brought it up, and Sam, I'm got to be what you're talking about. But there's a kid, a Texas high school recruit, named Jaden Blue. He's a really good running back. He's going to go to Texas, Steve Sarkisian. He's going to graduate early, enroll in January. But he announced recently he's not going to play high school football this year.
Oh, I remember this kid. I talked to this kid about a year ago. I just had to pull him up.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, okay.
So he's decided he's not going to play football. Not injured, not something going on in his family, he's a running back. And it's just, I'm paraphrasing, I've got limited, I've got he hasn't said it in these words, but this is kind of what I get from it is running backs have a short lifespan. I want to play in the league. I'm sitting out. I'm going to take off my senior year playing. I have some thoughts. I'll let you go. So your initial thoughts on.
Let me read the tweet for the people out there who are like me, who this is news to this morning.
Okay, go. Yeah, go. It's a good idea.
This is from Jaden Blue. He says, after countless hours of evaluation, I've made the decision to forego my senior season of high school football. This has been a very difficult decision for my family and I. Football is a brutal sport, and the wear and tear associated with the running back position is undeniable. I plan to take this time to focus on my academics while enhancing my off-the-field training/rehab regimen. This is a strategic and conscious effort to ensure that I'm prepared to perform at an elite level at the collegiate rankings during the 22 season. I want to thank each of my coaches and teammates at Klein Cain High School. The relationships established have helped mold me into the young man I am today. You have my continued support this season and in the future. This is an incremental step in hopes of one day fulfilling my NFL dreams. Jaden Blue signing out. So that's his statement for those of you who are like me, who are like, what are you guys talking about?
Yeah.
Chris said,
Sorry.
"With this," and I was like, "Nah, I've been a little busy." So now that I've read it and heard about it, kind of processing some thoughts.
Well, I'll go ahead and if you want to process a little bit,
I'll tell you what I think, Chris. I'm not surprised. I've long wondered when this would happen. That's not a statement of advocacy, but it is a statement of I'm not surprised. This has no shock value to me at all. Opting out has become in vogue at the college level. We're seeing it already with end of season. I cover Ole Miss, as you know, as most of the people listening to this know, and Ole Miss's best player last year, Elijah Moore, opted out of the final 2 games. He opted out of the final regular season game, which was a rivalry game against LSU. He opted out of the bowl game against Indiana. He did it to protect his health going into the NFL, and nobody thought anything of it because, frankly, Chris, it has become common. Lots of guys opted out. There were a lot of players that I think, for lack of a better word, used COVID as an excuse last year to opt out of a season. I know I think Jamar Chase opted out at LSU of the entire season, and he did it to protect his health. And for the most part, no one pays a price for it, if you will. So it's accepted. And so you look at a high school kid like this, who, if I remember correctly, Jaden Blue could have gone anywhere. I know that Ole Miss was trying to get him on campus pre-COVID.
It's a talented guy. I've seen him on film.
So I'm sure everybody was trying to get him. He's got his scholarship locked up to Texas. And so he says, you know what, I'm not going to mess with anything right now. I'm going to take care of me, and I'm going to opt out and get ready for the 2022 season. And I think one of Sam's questions was, is this going to become a trend? And I'll tell you this, my initial thought, Sam, is yes, this is probably a trend you are going to start seeing with some of the hyper elite prospects in the country. I do. I'm not saying it's good because I don't think it's a good thing, but I do think it's a trend, and it will likely become very acceptable and maybe even fashionable.
Well, he's certainly not going to be the only one. And whether it's a trend or not, I mean, maybe it will, maybe it won't. I sure heck hope not. Look, we are who we are, and we're from where we are, and we grew up a certain way, and I'm not going to apologize for it. I certainly understand and respect that things are changing, and I do think you need to change and adjust. I think that how the game is played is different, and you got to modify and adjust. And I think that you have to look at players. When I can still remember when Christian McCaffrey opted out of the Sun Bowl at Stanford, people were aghast.
Yeah.
It's like, I've said this before. In my day, we would walk through glass to rehab to get in to play a bowl game with my players. We do anything. That's the mindset. That's the way it was. And when he did it, it was a big story. Now it's a big story if they do play. And it's one of those type games. That's not a non-playoff game. I think it's unfortunate. I think it is a reflection of society. It is about taking care of myself. It's about me. The sport is about what's it going to do for my future. Okay, and I think it's great to get a scholarship opportunity. It's great if you're good enough to go play pro sport. It's wonderful. And I think you need to be smart. You know, what I don't get, though, in this pisses me off. I apologize for my French. But so you will have guys do this. And I'm not saying he's going to do this. But you'll have guys do this, and then you find out that they're riding a motorcycle, or doing something, it's something that is risky. So you make choices, and I'm not going to, you make your choice. That is, but it tells me as a longtime scout, it tells me a lot about where we are, about the person, and it may become norm. And it is more of, hey, I got to protect my future. I want to go to the league. I wanted, okay, I understand. There's big money. There's going to be that. But what it does say, and I know, oh, Landry, you just goofy old knucklehead. You think everybody's team first. And no, I'm not naive. But I do think one of the first things I want to get to know about a player, it tells me if somebody quote unquote, let me try, when somebody quits, because it's not opting out, it's quitting on your team. Okay, you quit because you want to take, fine, but you can't have it both ways. You want to quit, let's not you opt out. That was the thing last year. I do believe there was a lot of COVID cover, but there was maybe some legitimacy more so than normal years. I'll give that. Sure. But you're dealing with an idea now, that an ideology that it's about me. And guys like that, in my experience, even the very talented ones, don't usually become great teammates. I wish this kid the best. I hope everything is great. I hope he stays healthy, and I hope he has a great career. I'm going to be curious to see where he goes. Because here's the thing. If a guy quits, if a guy decides that he's not going to play that year, he's going to protect himself, it's too risky. Well, no bleeping joke that it's football. Football players play football. And here's the thing. I want guys that love football to play football because they love football and love making money and love getting the stuff as a result of that. But they're not motivated by money. Because if a player is motivated by money, or they will never achieve their greatness, because they're always looking what's best for them, what's going to create the best situation for them, and not what's best for the team. I've seen it. I've lived it. It's just the reality. It's what separates the guys that are great. Do you think, and I know this is extreme examples, do you think Michael Jordan was great just because he had the most talent ever?
No.
Or was he great because he kicked everybody's ass in every one of those practices with the Chicago Bulls that I'm told that was and played hurt and did things? And you hear things about Kobe as he was inducted posthumously into the Hall of Fame, and how he learned to shoot with a different hand when he had a broken finger, and he practiced every practice, and he did extra things. That's greatness to me. That's who you want. You need to have talent, but that's the type of guys you want to go to battle with. And when you have guys that tend to be a little bit more, I'm going to protect. So this guy is absolutely going to be the guy that's going to, I'm going to call it out like it is, because I've seen it. He's going to be the guy that he'll spend an extra day in the training room and not be as inclined to get back on practice on Texas's football field, because it's not so much about the Oklahoma game. It's just about, let me make sure that you're never going to be 100%. And that's the guy that if I draft him, it's, if he's playing for his contract, he's one player. Once he's got his money, he's another player. I've seen it, Neil. I've lived it. And yeah, it is going down to the high school level. And it is, money's the root of all evil. I don't believe that. But money does create different type of incentives. And all the great players are great because they wanted to be the absolute best. And by doing that and challenging themselves in every workout, every practice, every day, playing as many times and doing as many reps as they can to get better, those are the folks that end up making the most money and getting the most individual platitudes and recognition, because they're the greatest team guys and tough guys. I immediately say to this guy, in my mind, I don't know the kid, I never met him, but the first thing I got going in as a scout is, how tough is this guy? Because when he's going to become eligible at some point, if he's good enough to do it, how tough is he? He quit on his team. That's what he did. What is it now? Quit maybe. Oh, that's ugly. That's rude. Okay, find another word between opt out and quit.
Well, and
that's what I think.
Here's the thing about and I don't have any problem with the word quit as opposed to opt out. If I'm a scout and I've never been a scout, I'll probably never be a scout. But if I'm a scout or if I'm a coach, my concern with Jaydon Blue at this point is, you said it, you talked about how much do you love the game? Because if you took basketball away from Michael Jordan for a year, it would be torture. If you took it away from Kobe Bryant, he might kill somebody. I mean,
yeah.
How much do you want to play? Do you play? People kept. I remember when Peyton Manning kept playing, and people said, "Why is he doing it? He's got all the money in the world. He's famous, whatever." Mm-hmm. The answer was very simple, because dude loves football. I mean, he loves it so much that you're probably going to have to drag him off the field one day.
That's right.
Say, why does Tom Brady keep playing? I mean, he's won 30 Super Bowls now, and he's made a gazillion dollars, and he's married to a supermodel, and she's got more money than he's got. And I mean, she makes more money than he does. And people say, why does he keep doing it in his 40s? Because he loves it. It's what gives him identity. And look, I also get where the kid's coming from. But this is where I think the adults in his life have sort of let him down. And I'm a little bit familiar with his situation, Chris. I don't want to get into names or anything like that, but there are a lot of enablers in this kid's life. There are a lot of people around this kid who I guarantee you are saying, hey, you're going to get to Texas. These NIL rules are coming in play. You're going to have sponsorships. You're going to be the face of Texas football. You're the next Earl Campbell. And Earl Campbell couldn't cash in. You can. You're going to make a ton of money in college. And then in 3 years, you're going to go to the NFL. And all of these people, they've got their hands in his pockets. And so he's getting really bad advice on what this looks like. But you're exactly right. While I'm not a scout, Chris, I know some scouts beyond you. And you're exactly right. They're all going to say, this is a red flag. They're all going to look at the kid. Now, look, if he's got the talent, he'll go wherever, because it's all about talent. I mean, there's 22 allegations right now against Deshaun Watson and 3 or 4 NFL teams that are trying to trade for him. So if you've got the talent, there's always a place for you. But people are going to have a question. This is a question that's going to linger about Jaydon Blue. People are going to say, how much do you love football? When you get that rookie contract, is this all about getting to the second contract, or is this about you want to break records, you want to be the best, you want to surpass Eric Dickerson and Walter Payton and all the what is it that you want? Because if it's all about protecting yourself, that goes beyond Klein High School in Houston. That's going to happen in Austin, and at some point, that's going to happen in the NFL, where week 9 you don't really feel up to it, but your team needs you, and you're going to be like, hey, I got a contract coming up soon. I got to sit this one out against the Packers. And it is something that I think we're going down a path that a lot of those enablers are going to have influences all the way down to high school, because if now you're going to have money to be made in college with name, image, and likeness, and you've got that on the table, that is a little money before you get the big money if you can make that. Well, then, do you protect yourself with that? Well, at some point, again, football players play football. So, this guy's really talented, and that's fine, but you have to produce, and I have to see it enough if you don't play. So here's the thing that I would say about his development. He's not going to practice. I'm sure he may do individual stuff and work out. He's not going to have practice. He's not going to have reps, and he's not going to have game reps
And people say, oh, well, he's going to, yeah, he's got his scholarship. I get that. But his overall development is going to be hurt by that. You get better by practicing and playing. I know that's in a world of where people watch the games and get all that. It's behind the curtain. They don't see what makes you great. That's what makes you great. So, yeah, when I was talking about Kobe and Michael and all those guys, that's exactly what I meant. Is the things that they did that you saw when we watch it on TV and watch it in person, whatever. It's what they did to prepare to make themselves great. That's
the best Kobe story I've heard in a long time.
What's that?
So when Julius Randle, who's now having a renaissance year for the New York Knicks, when Julius Randle first came into the league, he was with the Lakers. It was at the end of Kobe's time. Kobe was basically a shell of Kobe at the end, like most of us are at the end of our careers or lives or whatnot. But Julius Randle would notice that whenever the Lakers landed in a city, Phoenix or San Antonio or wherever, Kobe Bryant, the first thing he did was he found a gym, middle of the night, found a gym to get shots up. And there was one particular gym in Detroit where what he did was he found a high school gym and found a high school gym and got the high school coach to wait in the middle of the night to open the gym up for Kobe. And Kobe would get his shots up. And anyway, Julius Randle started tagging along. And when he got to New York, he started doing that. And that high school coach in Detroit opened the gym for Julius Randle when the Knicks landed in Detroit. And he waited for Julius Randle to get his workout in. And then when he was finished, of course, he had to lock the gym up, right? I mean, it's just, stands to reason. And he got his autographs and stuff. But he told Julius Randle, he goes, "You're the first NBA player in a long time to do this." And Julius Randle said, "Who was the last one?" And he said, "Kobe." And so it is about work ethic and love of the game and all that stuff. And then I'm going to say this also about NIL because I'm really interested in NIL. There's a lot of promises being made out there about NIL. And I think a lot of kids, and maybe I'm wrong, I think a lot of kids are going to be really disappointed in what NIL actually puts in their hands. I don't know that it's going to be this bonanza of funds that a lot of kids think it's going to be. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't. I don't think it's going to be this bonanza. I do think some kids are going to be able to build their brand a little bit at the college level, but I don't know that you're going to be able to cash in on that the way that they think they're going to as college players. Maybe I'm wrong. It's a developing thing. We won't know for a while. But there are a lot of guys, young guys, that are thinking, man, I'm going to be rich. I'm going to be making 7 figures as a sophomore at the University of X. And I'm telling you, Chris, I don't think that's going to happen.
No, it's not going to be that. But I do think it's going to be a lot more organized behind the scenes. I know people said, well, it's not going to. I don't think anybody on the outside is going to notice any difference. But behind the scenes, and I'm already sensing it because some schools and coaches kind of with their implant. And I'm talking about the big time schools that can afford to do this. So I'm not talking about everybody. In fact, I'm talking about the very few. They're going to have, and I've said this before, so I'm not going to waste a lot of time on it, but you're going to have a very structured, organized way to do this. It's the reason why schools have already hired like marketing firms, agencies, whatever, that to basically help the players increase their individual brand. But that's also done, because I asked about it, is they're going to take, I'm sure people are familiar, I know Neil you are, with something called the Jobber programs, which is, you don't have as much of their kids go to summer school and work out, but you have, when kids can work, basically they're businesses and companies that will give athletes, football players, jobs, which is basically kind of it's a simple job, but they get a way to pay them money, and it's legal for years and years. What is going to happen now, or the plan is that there's going to have a system in place to where the players are taken care of. Maybe not equally, because the great superstar quarterbacks that's a Heisman candidate, let's say, is going to get a lot more interest. But, like he'll be able to get, because everybody thinks these players are going to go out and do it on their own. No, they're not. That's going to kind of be, they'll get the calls, and this is kind of how it's going to be handled. So I think the elite players, the elite players are going to get more. But I still think at the big-time programs, you better believe at a big-time program that the offensive linemen are going to have some deal with somebody. You may not read about it. You may not hear about it. You may not know about it. But they're going to get something. Now, it's more than what they're getting, and it's not as much as their star quarterback. How that's going to affect the locker room, that depends on the player. If the player is all about, well, I'm not getting as much as that guy, it could create problems if you don't have a handle on it. But again, and I think we are in the world of more and more, what's in it for me, and it's less about team. And to me, football is the ultimate team sport in my mind. And I just, the best players in the history of this game, college, NFL, they're the toughest, biggest team guys that also have talent. A lot of guys have talent. Jamarcus Russell had talent. A lot of guys have a lot of talent. Talent's pretty easy to, but Jamarcus is an example of a complete bust. Most guys make it because they're not as bad as Jamarcus was in terms of, but they don't ever achieve what their capabilities are because they do just enough to get them. We all know that. We know there are people that just show up for work and they do their job. They do whatever they need to do. But, I mean, they're not going to do anything extra. And you have that a ton in football. Not as many players love the game as you might think. A lot of them play it because of what it can bring to them. And my experience, trust me, from mistakes I've made in evaluation, most of it is getting to know the player correctly. I stay away from the guys that are the me guys because those guys are the ones that won't achieve what their abilities are. They may achieve something, but they will never be as good as they can be because they don't do those extra things. And we can take I've mentioned Kobe several times just because he was on my mind because he was posthumously inducted last week into the Basketball Hall of Fame. But there are others that fall into that category. In the football side, there's just so many great players that just became great because of they have ability, but what they do on top of that. But there's a lot of guys that fall short, and that's one of the toughest things, if not the toughest thing, to ascertain in scouting is to really know. And you look at the film and you look at the extra things and you go to practice and you see which does what, and you see guys that Neil, I've seen this too. Where you go to practice as a scout. And boy, they know the scouts there, and they see it, and they do look. And then maybe you look at practice tape another time when maybe there's no scouts there, and they're not working as hard. That tells you a lot about a guy. It does. So I just say buyer beware on any of these guys and wish them the best. But if it becomes more and more normal, like you said, if a guy opts out of a bowl game, that's pretty much standard now. But here's the thing. Did he opt out of the bowl game because that's the thing to do? And was he a guy that busted his ass in practice and did everything up to that point? That's a different story. But if you've got a pattern of behavior, I'm going to just tell you, here's my experience. I learned this a long time ago, Neil. Money makes you more of what you are. So if you're going to just do enough to get paid, that's what, in whatever that pay is, that to be on the high school team, when you get to that next level, you're just going to do enough to get by. And you'll never be, you're only going to be as good as your talent will allow. And your talent's going to only take you so far. Because at the highest level, talent's not going to separate you. Talent's going to give you a chance. But your ability to be successful, is the things that we're talking about. You either have it or you don't.
See where Michigan transfer William Mohan transferred to Tennessee. Is that a significant pickup for the Vols?
Not significant, but a good one, mainly because the door has been open where guys have been going out the other way. So at least it's somebody to come in. I was thinking the other day, who's Tennessee lost? Eric Gray, Wanya Morris, Henry Teoto, just to name a few. Ty Chandler, forgot about him. Some really good players that are going to. Ty's going to North Carolina, of course. Henry to Alabama. Eric Gray, I mentioned Oklahoma. Who else did I mention? That I forgot there. Wanya Morris is also going to Oklahoma. Oklahoma probably done as good a job as anybody of getting transferred. So,
who has benefited the most from the transfer portal this year, from what you've seen so far?
Well, I think Oklahoma's got a couple of key guys, because I think you get Eric Gray and you get Wanya Morris. You've got two plug-and-play starters for a team that's really good. It's hard. I mean, you got guys with bigger numbers that have maybe filled in spots. I think Georgia's, like, for example, helped their secondary because basically had all those injuries. But I think Oklahoma did a really good job. I think Florida State's done a good job. I think USC's added a few guys as well. You get, Penn State's added a couple of guys. I think UCLA, Miami, but I would probably say the two plug-and-play guys that are elite to have two really good ones. Oklahoma probably is much impact. Florida State probably, from a number standpoint, filling in gaps in the roster, they probably have done the best job in that regard.
Who's been hurt the most by it?
Tennessee.
Okay.
Tennessee, and I mean, two elite guys that went to Oklahoma. They came from Tennessee. I think they've been hurt tremendously.
Donovan Kaufman commits to or transfers to Auburn from Vanderbilt. I know he was signed with Derek Mason when Derek Mason was at Vanderbilt. How significant of a pickup is that for that?
A good player, a depth move, and obviously going there. Why? Because he got familiarity with the new defense coordinator that had him. So he likes him. Derek likes him a lot and thinks he can help in the rotation. And we'll see. That's a team that is in a rebuild roster wise.
Auburn.
Yeah, you remember when Gus came in, he had the early success. That was a pretty good roster. Boy, not so much now. They've got to really fix things on offense, but defensively, they're losing a lot. And, I think that's going to take, and that's why they're looking at certain key guys in the portal and trying to fill in some of the gaps, which is what you got to do to kind of be competitive. But, boy, I think that's going to be a couple of years of building the roster back up, because I don't know that right now it's going to be tough for them.
Let's do this with Auburn for a minute. We did this with a couple of schools the other day, a couple of teams. I think we did South Carolina. We took just kind of a fast look at the Gamecocks. We took a fast look at Arkansas, I think. I can't remember exactly.
We did Arkansas. One of our guys there, I can't remember who it was, that said, I'm loving Arkansas. And I'm like, whoa. Neil pull out the schedule, and we start looking at it. I'm like, okay, love them all you want. I mean, try to find 5 wins on that schedule, and, let me know when you find them.
All right, let's do this with Auburn. They open on September the 4th at home against Akron. On September the 11th, they continue at home against Alabama State, and obviously a non-league game. A high-profile non-league game, September the 18th, Auburn goes to Penn State. That's it'll be seen on ABC. That's already a time set on that. That's a primetime game, 6:30 p.m. Central, 7:30 Eastern. Auburn at Penn State on ABC. A week later, Auburn wraps up the non-league portion of its schedule with homecoming September the 25th against Georgia State. And then they jump into SEC play on October the 2nd. Auburn goes to LSU. On October the 9th, the Tigers entertain longtime rival Georgia, a game usually in late November. This year it's on October the 9th. October the 16th, Auburn goes to Arkansas. Then October the 23rd, Auburn is off. They get a chance to sort of hit the reset button after a long stretch of games. October the 30th, they entertain Ole Miss at Jordan-Hare. On November the 6th, they go to College Station to play Texas A&M. November the 13th, they're at home against Mississippi State. On November the 20th, they play their final road game of the season at South Carolina. And then obviously they finish at home on November the 27th with the Iron Bowl, Alabama and Auburn getting together there at Jordan-Hare Stadium. Got a any quick thoughts as to how that schedule shapes up for the Tigers?
Yeah, so I'm making notes as you're talking. I mean, I see 5 losses, clearly. I mean, there has to be something weird to happen, and it can, always do. But your schedule helps. So you got Akron, Alabama State, Georgia State. So you got 3 games, particularly the first 2, that you can figure some things out. And, the 3 games that you can't lose. I think South Carolina's roster is about as weak as anybody, so it's a bonus to be able to get them in the East game.
Yep.
So that's 4 wins, in my mind. I think you just we're going to have to wait and see Arkansas and Mississippi State. I think those games are winnable and they're losable, and but from a roster standpoint, again, this is going to be bigger challenges than maybe even the Auburn fan thinks. But those are toss-up games. I think the Penn State game is intriguing.
I just want to interrupt real quick. You're saying at Arkansas and at home against Mississippi State are toss-up games for all.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't mean to interrupt your train of thought. I just was making.
No, I think they are, and I think it depends. It may be more decisive for one or the other as we get closer to those games, but. No, it's just not that's not a slam dunk. I mean, the Auburn fans are going to think, oh, yeah, we're going to beat Arkansas, Mississippi State. I think those are winnable games for those 2 teams against Auburn, and I think vice versa.
Okay.
Penn State is not going to be easy at all. Not a great team. Again, neither is Auburn. So, I mean, there's what I call kind of the games that I'm not quite sure where to go at this point, because knowing Penn State, Arkansas, Mississippi State, I think those are your swing ones. I don't. Alabama's a no, A&M's a no, Georgia's a no, and I think that Ole Miss is I would certainly favor Ole Miss at this point. It's not a game you'd rule out for Auburn, and I think LSU's quite a bit better. Now, the whole collapse factor of LSU and all that kind. I mean, I get that. So, sure, could this record be? I'm not into the record, predicting stuff, because I can look at it and say, all right, look, got 4 games I feel really good about that, and then I've got 4 games that I don't like at all for your chances of winning, and then I've got 1 game that's probable loss, 1 game that's maybe a probable win, but that I'm not quite comfortable, and then I've got maybe 2, 3 that are just at this point are on the fence. So to me, I think if you're looking at the 1-loss record, which everybody does, I can tell you right now, the Auburn fan will not be happy, because their expectations of what they're going to be and what they're going to be are not going to match up. I think you're going to have to look at and if you're the sensible fan and you see how they play and if they get better, I think you're going to see some positives. I think you should be happy, because I think that the guy's a really good coach, and I think he'll fix a lot of things. I just think there's some real holes on this roster, and look, he could coach them to win over Penn State and Arkansas and Mississippi State and Ole Miss, and wow, that could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 8 wins, 8 and 4 against that schedule would be like coach of the year type, because from a roster standpoint, it doesn't match up, basically.
It's interesting because initially when you said that about Arkansas and Mississippi State, I thought, Chris been drinking? But then I started thinking about it.
I got coffee. Yeah, I don't.
And then I started thinking about it, and I'm like, well, a year ago, Arkansas basically won at Auburn.
Yeah, I'm not saying that they're not as good. I'm just saying it's not.
Right.
It's not a. It's not a.
So the interesting games for me on that schedule for Auburn, obviously, is Penn State. That's
Mm-hmm.
by the way, that will be a gorgeous uniform game. If you're like me and you're a uniform guy, Auburn's all whites on the road that is a spectacular uniform. And Penn State's classic look is they're one of only probably 3, maybe 4 schools that have a look that is so distinctly them that you'd be crazy to change it, and they don't. That'll be a great uniform game. It'll also be a real interesting identity game for both of those teams, I think, September the 18th. I'm like you. There's like 4 games that stick out as those are wins. The other three non-league games in South Carolina, to me, are all wins. I'm like you. There's 3 games on their schedule that I don't think they can win. Georgia, Texas A&M, and obviously Alabama. I don't think those are games that Auburn can win. I think Auburn is likely to beat Arkansas. And I think, because I'm just not high on them at all, Chris, I think Auburn is likely to beat Mississippi State. I'd put those in the probable category if it's me. And obviously I'm worse at this than you are, but I'll go on.
No, I don't.
And then the 2 swing games for me, if the football gods came down into my Clark Ford studio here and said, all right, Neil, you can pick 2 games on the Auburn schedule. We'll tell you the outcome, and you can use that to go bet on the other games on Auburn's schedule. I'd say, okay, tell me what they do on October the 2nd in Baton Rouge. Tell me what they do on October the 30th at home against Ole Miss. Give me those 2 games, those results, as much information as you're willing to give me, football gods, from those 2 games, and I think I'll be able to pick the rest. Those are the 2 interesting swing games on their schedule for me that I look at and go, I don't know. I don't know, because I don't feel like I know a ton about LSU, honestly. And LSU's sort of, in my mind, very flammable right now. And then there's a lot of optimism around Ole Miss, and I get it. But I remain a little cynical because it's kind of my nature, a little skeptical because it's kind of my nature. And I remember this is still 1 year ago, this was still an abhorrently bad defense. And I think it's going to be better. But does better mean average, or does better mean, hey, y'all don't quite suck as bad as you did a year ago? You know what I mean? And so I'm interested in those 2 games from an Auburn standpoint on looking at how the rest of it would look.
Here's what I'd say about Auburn. I feel very comfortable in saying they'll be a better coach team and program with this staff. I am very comfortable. Not even a question. But when you say that, fans think, oh, they're going to win more games. They're not. The program was let in bad shape. I mean, there's reasons why Gus was let go. And, Gus probably, if this would have been handled correctly, they would have let Gus go if truly Arkansas was going to bite on them or not, whatever, call his bluff and move on. They didn't. They had bad president that panicked. Bottom line is, I think there's been some inconsistency in recruiting in certain areas, and I think there's some significant schematic changes that need to be adjusted and modified. I think they'll be better coached. Just think that it's going to take a while to get that done. Look, if I were to sit here and tell you today, I think they have a little bit more going for them than Arkansas. And I put that Arkansas and Mississippi State on the fence. Those games on the fence with them. If you said get off the fence and knock it one way, I'd probably go Auburn over Arkansas. I'm not sure. I'm less comfortable saying Auburn over Mississippi State, but if I had to, I'd probably give an Auburn an edge there. Penn State's kind of those are the 3 to me, the swing games. I think Ole Miss has to screw it up to not win this game. I mean, and it can happen. They could have injuries and depth issues. I think Ole Miss is better than Auburn. Maybe I won't feel that way when we get closer to that game because, again, things change it during the course of the season. But I don't think Ole Miss and LSU are swing games. I think those are games those are losses unless Auburn is quite a bit better, or those teams come back to the pack. That's what I think. I think the swing games are Penn State, Arkansas, and Mississippi State because, I think, 8 would be phenomenal. And I just don't think there's 8 right now. Again, during the season, things change because the team looks a little bit better. They're able to figure some things out, and the record is relative to who you're doing it against. So, you may not be any better than I think you are, but you may end up being a 2 wins better or 2 wins less because of the circumstances of who you're playing. So I think it's going to be interesting. Look, I hate the win total, but we're having fun and looking at it. All I can do is look at the rosters and say, better roster than South Carolina, Georgia State, Alabama State, and Akron. Not a definitively better roster right now than Penn State. I think a little better than Arkansas, but I can get into more of that later. In Mississippi State, I think they got a little bit more talent, but I do think Mississippi State's going to be a little bit more difficult for them to defend. We can get into more Mississippi State. I think Mississippi State will be improved on offense. But, yeah, no, I think that's key. And I just would say this. Look, if you're an Auburn fan, hope and think good things as everybody should. Hey, go win 8, and if you don't think you got the wrong coach. Be patient because it's going to take some doing to fix this. And whether he's the right coach or not is going to come on the recruiting trail. You're recruiting the top 5. You won't, in my opinion, you're going to have a more consistent program under Brian. But are you going to be good enough to beat Alabama once in a while? It's going to look a little different. Auburn was able to do it a couple of times, and that is what Gus could storm the hill and plant the sword and say, I did this. He did something that others couldn't do. That means a whole lot on the plains, of course.
Of course.
But, the feeling is, well, you do that, but then you're not consistent. I think you're going to get more consistency with Brian, but also think he's having to build a foundation that Gus didn't quite have to do. And that's where I think the transition may be a little bit more challenging. We'll see. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's kind of fun to be talking about it because it is a ways away, but I start to kind of see it, smell it, taste it, feel it when you start to look at these rosters and see, there's a lot of work with a lot of these teams, and a lot of these things are going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
We're brought to you by Blue Sky. They believe in being fast, fresh, and friendly through the thoughtful layout and cleanliness of their stores. Blue Sky hopes to provide customers with a fast and easy buying experience from services to products. Blue Sky plans to keep things fresh and always provide the freshest flavors of the brand name products and the best services available. A smile can say it all, and at Blue Sky, they want to show their customers they care about them and their shopping experience. They'll always strive to improve their efforts to accomplish exactly that. So check out Blue Sky today at any one of their 48 store locations across the Southeast. And we're brought to you by Alpha Specialties, located at 1670 Highway 80 in Pearl, Mississippi. Alpha is your trailer-specific professional. If you want to haul it, they can call it. They've got the premium trailer dealership in Mississippi. They've got Load Trail. They've got the Hallmark cargo trailers. They can even work with third parties to have game day trailers and concession trailers built just for you to your specifications. For podcast listeners, Alpha has spare tires and wheels starting at just $100, a full selection of trailer parts and accessories, hitches, winches, straps, and more. They do all sorts of truck accessories, and they also have a full-service shop. Tell them that you're a listener, and you get 10% off all types of repairs on trailers, concession, horse, utility, enclosed, gooseneck, RV, and more. 601-932-9798 or alphaofms.com.
Couple of things here to get to here. Somebody's asking about Mike Leach. Is he in trouble? No, not after 2 years. They'll be more patient. But I think in the end, the people that thought that, well, Mike Leach will be able to do things at Mississippi State, commensurate what he did at Washington State and Texas Tech, I think you probably, for those of you who haven't known, I don't think he's going to have that type of level. But I think he'll probably pull an upset. And then against somebody that you probably don't think, and then he'll underachieve in some games that you don't think. in terms of James Franklin, will he survive the year? You know, I'm not a big – James did a great job at Vanderbilt. I mean, he's a great salesman. Now, that's an example that we just talked about. I think Penn State's right now, their roster is more talented than the current Auburn roster. That's not typical, but that's the case right now. But the reason I give Auburn a chance in that game is because of coaching. So, I mean, I think if it's anywhere equal coaching level, I think Penn State wins this game double digits. But I just, I think that I think Auburn will have a better chance in it than people might think. So we'll see. It's fun. It's kind of fun working through the process, working through the league. We'll do that. We still haven't gotten to, some of the key players that are coming back that you can check out some of the details. I've got some of that stuff on LandryFootball.com. Keeping you updated with all the recruiting information as well over at LandryFootball.com. That's going on. The transfer information. We're going to be doing a lot of things. So maybe ranking coaches. We'll maybe do that as well. Have a lot of fun. Also, I mean, folks, if you have some ideas of things that you'd like to hear us talk about, hey, join us in the chat room. And like all the guys who have got, I mean, Grind and Oklahoma Rebel and Blake Robinson and Sammy and Rich Coates and gosh, who else has joined us? Just so many of you. We really appreciate. Ben has always been around. Appreciate everybody. Jeffrey, Jeffrey Parrott, Fantasy Football 101. Good friend of the show. So join us in the chat room. As always, Neil, what's going on over at the website and all the other stuff that you're doing? I know you got plenty of other podcasts that folks can listen to you on.
Yeah, we got a lot of college baseball right now. As you know, Ole Miss is a pretty big college baseball school. Fans are pretty into it. When we get back together on Tuesday, Chris, so the SEC tournament
yes.
will start in Hoover. It's the final weekend started last night. Everybody plays again today. The regular season wraps up tomorrow. Arkansas right now, 20-8.
Real quick on that. I interrupt. So tell me what we can talk a little bit about it more because I know I do like the SEC tournament. Keep an eye on it. Arkansas looks like the most complete team. You agree with that?
Yeah, they probably are. They
a little bit.
They don't do anything just great other than their closer is freaking phenomenal. But they do everything well. They do nothing badly. They just don't have a weakness really, and it's beginning to show. They're 40-10 overall. They're 20-8 in the league. Tennessee's very good right now. They won last night.
If I tell you Arkansas doesn't win the SEC championship, who's winning it?
In the tournament?
Yes, in the SEC tournament.
The tournament's kind of funky because if you're Arkansas, if you're Vanderbilt, if you're Tennessee, I don't really know that there's a whole ton of motivation to be there. So I don't, you got to be careful if you're
got the regional set up. You're in good shape.
It's not, and that's not, it's not that you want to go throw it. It's just that you got to be,
Yeah, no, I get it. I get it.
Careful. There's nothing. You got bigger fish to fry. If you told me a team kind of came out of nowhere a little bit and won the tournament, probably look at Florida, Mississippi State, two teams that are in good shape but feel like they probably need to make some noise. I mean, the two best teams in the league are probably Arkansas and Vanderbilt. Tennessee's right there. Their record's phenomenal. They're 19-9 in the league. Ole Miss is really good at 17-11. Florida's really good at 17-11. Mississippi State's 18-10. I mean, those are the five best teams in the league, six best teams in the league. There's six teams that are above the others. South Carolina's kind of right there. And then there's teams that'll have a lot to play for in Hoover potentially, or Georgia, Alabama, maybe even LSU. LSU needs to win tonight. LSU needs to win tomorrow. And then LSU needs to make noise in Hoover to make the tournament. And then after that, it's just teams finishing up the string.
I know you got to run. I know you got a busy, but a couple of things that just. Oh, did you see? Did you see Van Horn and the Tennessee coach?
Yeah, I saw that.
Get into it.
Yeah.
It was over a recruit, and what's interesting to pick after a game, they get into it. So that's interesting. Now there's some discussion now that. Tennessee situation, we know they're the women's basketball program is, I mean, to say the least, is the shell of itself of what it used to be. And obviously we know they're struggling in football. And they like Rick Barnes, but they call him regular season Rick. Fair, unfair. So they got obviously a really good baseball coach, and they love the fact that he does a good job. And of course, Vanderbilt has their own. That's a little interesting, right? So there's talk that the Tennessee coach will maybe get an offer, maybe from A&M or someplace like that.
Maybe.
And the debate is, will Tennessee pay him? Should they pay him? Interesting. Is it do you pay? Because obviously, let's say the Aggies, and you mentioned LSU. I don't know what. I don't even know. I know Paul actually fairly well, but I never talk baseball. I'm not that. I don't know what his situation. I don't even know. I mean, feel free to share. I don't know if he's in any trouble. They got a lot of issues going on at LSU, but I know Paul is. He doesn't. Last time I saw him, he doesn't look good. He looks like he's. When I wave at him, he just kind of like, this boy. He looked like me getting ready for the draft. I mean, he just looked like he's had it. Guy's had a lot of success, but obviously there's a lot of expectations at LSU. But it's interesting to see now baseball program, a guy like that's doing a good job at Tennessee, and obviously came from Arkansas. That led to with Van Horn and that stuff. So I thought that was interesting. Two baseball guys at the baseball fight. I'm like, I want to see them throw down. I want to see I was watching the I don't know. I probably don't watch hockey. I was watching a little bit of a lot of stuff last night. But I like those hockey guys go after some football. These baseball guys go at it, and it's like, hold me back, Neil, hold me back. Some of that. But I'm curious to see what Tennessee does. Do they pony up the money to keep the guy, or do they say, good luck at A&M or wherever?
Yeah, I don't know what Tennessee does. I don't think they're going to be able to keep this guy for very long. I think A&M is going to look at him hard. I think if LSU makes a change, he's going to be on their very short list. And if you told me that Dave Van Horn ironically, if you told me that Dave Van Horn at Arkansas, hangs him up in the next year or two, I wouldn't be surprised. And if that happens, I think the guy at Tennessee Botello is the clear favorite at Arkansas. He was there before, and I know they were fighting over a recruit. But Arkansas wants Tony Botello. If Van Horn were to win a national championship this year, for example, and walk away at the very top,
that would make sense. Yeah, I didn't know that Van Horn was that close to possibly calling it. He may not be.
A long time. So, but anyway, Botello would be their first call. So Tennessee's going to have a hard time keeping him. And whether it's worth it, whether you can justify the economics of it and all that, I don't know.
They have awful baseball facilities there. The Lindsey Nelson Stadium is really – they're trying to do something off campus that combines with the minor league team to maybe make it. Because if you don't – that's the thing that says, hey, I'm out of here. When you look at the facilities – Vanderbilt, you look at A&M, you look at LSU, you look at everybody now. It's got some good facilities. So anyway, that's your that's your SEC baseball talk. We'll talk a little bit more. I mean, shoot the news on top of it. I will kind of follow it. No expert on it, but I will follow it and keep an idea of what's going on. So we want to talk about that. We certainly can do that. But thanks again to everybody joining us in the chat room. Have a great weekend, Neil. Congratulations again. I got the dates mixed up, but graduation is this weekend. So Congratulations in the McCready household. Another one's graduating high school, and then we'll see what Carson wants to do with the soccer stuff. We're excited about that. So I don't know. One more out the nest. It's good, but it's kind of sad. I just, you and the missus, empty nest before long, before you know it.
Going to get quiet here before you know it. But all right, we'll wrap it up. We'll be back with you guys on Tuesday for another edition of SEC Football and Beyond. For Chris Landry, I'm Neil McCready. Have a great weekend. Stay safe. Talk to you soon.